Welcome to the weather forecast on CIA TV channel. Dear friends, in today's forecast, we're going to break down what you need to know about the weather that's going to affect the United States over the next 7 days. The tropics are heating up very quickly as we have a hurricane in the Pacific Ocean moving towards Hawaii. And we've got another hurricane forming in the Atlantic Ocean over the next few days. And finally, a major hurricane system is going to hit the United States over the next few days. And this is going to be the coldest weather we've ever seen in much of the United States. As you know, it's a long way off, but that's where we're tracking it. Multiple tropical waves ahead of it that we're also going to be tracking through the Caribbean, towards the Bahamas. Back towards the United States. All the models are saying it's going to develop into a hurricane. The US model, the European model, the Canadian model, the Icon model, the German model. They all think this is going to become a hurricane. And the track, it's still undetermined because obviously there are a lot of variables in the environment, as you know, and it's very far away. Now let's look at the situation right now. The US model, the GFS model, it hasn't turned yet, but it's coming very close to us, at least in the northeastern Caribbean. The European model is saying this storm is going to move right into the eastern Caribbean, then curl down the track and then actually try to weaken some of the storms further away. But all the models are saying it's going to become a hurricane. Now let's look at what's going on ahead. So keep an eye on all that in the Atlantic. Still heavy rain in the Bahamas. Trying to move towards parts of Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti. Notice near Jacmel, Boston Blue, the Cayman Islands, and there's some heavier rain, Costa Rica and Panama. Northern Bahamas again. Back through parts of South Florida. Those are areas of very heavy rain. And here's Kiko. This storm is going to move into Hawaii. It's going to be a threat to Hawaii. And here's Lorena moving into Baja, north of Cabo San Lucas. And that's going to bring some heavier weather back into other parts of Mexico and tracking the southwest United States. Now let's go back to that area in the Atlantic. So we're in the Caribbean. As of right now, it's still moving westward. So we're in the Caribbean. This is on Sunday. By Sunday, it's going to be at least a classified system, a tropical depression or a tropical storm at that point. The high pressure is still generally to the north. And because it's developing slowly, the European model is saying that it's heading toward the Caribbean at this point. That's going to happen next Saturday as we get into September 13th. But the European model is showing this weakening because not only am I looking at the high pressure areas, the fronts that are driving it, but it's also showing that if this hits the Caribbean, there's going to be some wind shear. That's winds that are a lot higher than our heads. That's a good thing. It's going to knock the storm tops off of a tropical storm or hurricane, which could eventually weaken it. So early next week, all the European model variants are calling this a tropical storm or becoming a hurricane. But as we go forward, while this looks like a threat to the Caribbean, it's still generally uncertain exactly where it's going. And that's showing some general certainty. But then we have to see how strong it gets. Is it a tropical storm or a hurricane? Does it weaken as it moves into the Caribbean? Now, the concern is that anything that tries to head towards us in the Caribbean. There are these huge pockets of warm air. Look at the Caribbean, look at this red shade, right? And then right up near Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, right up into the Bahamas, back into the Gulf. This is not just warm water. Warm water goes down. So if a tropical storm or hurricane comes through here, it's just going to bring more warm water with it. So if anything is headed towards the Caribbean, the Gulf, the Bahamas, it could be very strong and potentially even very strong. That's what I'll be watching to see where it goes. Since the high pressure is likely to be to the east, that would create an alley for it to lift north and avoid us in the northeastern Caribbean. But both the US model and the European model show a near miss or direct impact at this point. It would be great if it did and avoided us. So we're looking at a higher chance of rain in some places. You see the spread in the Cayman Islands, some rain from the Bahamas, of course, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, some rain. But on Saturday, behind that tropical wave is really Barbados, St. Lucia, to the south. So Grenada, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to have a better chance of getting some of that rain. You can see this is Lorena. This is Kiko. Lorena, as expected, as I mentioned, the core is going to be offshore as it weakens. But adding to that is rain. This is Kiko. It's going to be approaching Hawaii, potentially all of the Hawaiian Islands. So we're going to be watching that. But as we look at Lorena moving in, it looks like it's going to be a little bit slower. It could hang. That means there's not a lot of moisture being pulled into Texas, New Mexico and Arizona. But there will be some moisture being pulled in. But really watch the landslide threat today in Mexico as this continues. And then let's look at that as we head into early next week. There's Kiko heading toward Hawaii. I'll show you how strong it is in just a second. So that looks like a threat to Hawaii anyway. So there's a lot going on in the eastern and central Pacific and Atlantic basins. Both basins are very active right now. But the rain, the threat to Baja in the rest of northwest Mexico. The flood watch, but trying to keep you informed across Mexico about that over the last couple of days. Sometimes these systems just taper off as they make landfall. So there's not going to be a lot of rain that's going to come out, but I'm expecting some flooding. But some of that will be into Arizona, New Mexico, maybe west and north Texas. We'll have to see how much of that rain is going to hold. But keep in mind, there's going to be a potential for flooding, potential for river flooding, in parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and maybe parts of Texas, depending on how much rain accumulates. That's what we're going to be watching. But here's Kiko. This storm is going to be approaching Hawaii. As of Monday, it's still a hurricane on Monday, but it's going to weaken as it gets closer. You see all the models are trying to push this storm toward Hawaii as we get into early to mid next week. As we get into early next week, it's going to be a Category 1 hurricane, but then weaken as it gets closer to Hawaii. So hopefully it'll weaken further. But tropical storm impacts are possible early next week, even mid next week in Hawaii. That's what we'll be watching. Cuba, Bahamas, South Florida, near Bermuda. Turning hard as you get into Manitoba. Even colder air, some snow there. This is Lorena absorbing moisture. And then you'll see some moisture as we move into tomorrow near parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Still northwest of Mexico with Lorena. Some heavy rain will come into South Florida, northern Bahamas and parts of Cuba. And this is the vortex moving in, from Manitoba into Ontario and Quebec. Bringing some thunderstorms from New Brunswick, New England, down into the mid-Atlantic as we move into Saturday. Some parts of the Midwest, the Great Lakes and cooler air, Manitoba, Ontario and Quebec as all of this moves into Atlantic Canada. Right now, the sea levels are not too high. And we'll get back to what's going on across the country today. And you'll notice right across the Great Lakes region, we have a very strong low-pressure system that's moving out of Canada. And we're starting to see the first signs of cold weather moving into the northern plains. This strong low-pressure system is going to bring some very cold weather, including the potential for freezing temperatures and even scattered snow, to some of the northern plains, the Midwest, and back into the Ohio Valley in the Northeast over the next few days. In addition, we're tracking the threat of severe weather today and tomorrow, which will extend from Arkansas all the way up to the Northeast. And even a small group of funnel clouds and isolated tornadoes are possible today across parts of Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska. We'll talk more about that here in just a few minutes. Also, back in the eastern Pacific, this is a real storm that is right off the coast of Baja California. This storm is not expected to have much impact on the United States. A few days ago, It looked like this was going to bring a lot of moisture to the southern plains. But now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Instead, it's going to slow down quickly and weaken as it moves into Baja California. And it's unlikely to have much impact on the United States. However, some of the moisture that's left over from this storm will likely spill into Texas, which could bring some showers and thunderstorms over the weekend and early next week. Now, we have a lot to talk about in today's forecast. We have a very strong low-pressure system just north of the Great Lakes with a very strong northwesterly flow coming straight out of Canada. We rarely see anything like this, which is why it's going to be very cold over the next 48 hours across the Midwest and Ohio Valley because all of this intense mid to upper level air is coming from Canada, which has a pocket of very cold air. And all of that air is going to be coming down into the Midwest and Ohio Valley over the next few days. As we get closer to the weekend and early next week, that cold weather is going to continue, especially if you're around the Ohio Valley or the Northeast. There's still going to be some cold that's lingering into early next week in parts of the Midwest and the Northern Plains. Finally, as we get into early to mid next week, high pressure will start to build up again across the southern plains. As we get into the second weekend of September and even the third week of September, there's a chance that one of these low-pressure systems on the west coast will try to cross the Rockies. If we see something like that, that would at least indicate that severe weather is coming back. But it could also move north and head toward Canada and weaken. And if that happens, there won't be much severe weather. However, I think warmer weather is coming back as high pressure is really building up here across the Great Plains. Today, we have the first cold front moving through the Midwest and Great Lakes. However, tomorrow, we will see an even colder front, with temperatures dropping by 20 to 30 degrees Celsius in parts of the Midwest, including Minnesota, Iowa and the Dakotas, over the next 24 hours. Friday will be the coldest day of the week for much of the northern United States. Temperatures will drop below average as far south as Texas on Friday. Then, on Saturday and Sunday, the cold front will extend across the Great Lakes before finally moving up the east coast on Monday and Tuesday, where we will see temperatures drop, especially across New England. So, a nice bit of cold weather, which will be our first taste of fall. Unfortunately, if you're looking forward to fall, we're going to be facing a return to warmer weather as we head into next week. There's a good chance of above-average temperatures returning across the Great Plains. However, there could be some lingering cold air if you head back to the Northeast. Overall, though, most of the country should be back to above-average temperatures by mid-September. A cold front is also moving through the Northeast. This is the first cold front that's moving through Pennsylvania and New York. Right near that cold front is where we're going to see some isolated severe weather today. Friday morning will be pretty cold across the northern plains and Midwest. Most areas are in the 40s. Saturday morning is one of those tricky mornings, as we could see sub-freezing temperatures try to creep in parts of the Dakotas and especially across northeastern Minnesota. There's also a chance of some light snow showers if you head back near Duff. Just north of Duff, there's a slight chance of some light snow showers on Saturday. By Sunday and Monday, temperatures will continue to be pretty low across much of the Midwest, Great Lakes, back into the Northeast. Some of that cold air will sink into the southeast, but if you head back into Florida, there's really no sign of any let-up. This cold air mass is really just going to move down into central Georgia, central Mississippi, and then move further south. So even if the cold air mass does move in, it won't feel much different outside. And the other thing I want to point out is that it's really breaking records this morning and tomorrow morning in the United States. These are the forecast high temperatures for today across the Midwest and Great Lakes. All the numbers on the map here are showing records. So any number here is basically a record high. Also on Friday, we expect temperatures to be even higher south of Kansas City. where it's forecast to be just 66 degrees tomorrow afternoon. That would make it the coldest high temperature we've ever seen that day. We will continuously update the storm situation in the next news. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. Thank you for watching the news on CIA TV channel.